My name is Luis Fernando Rivera. I served as a soldier in the Mexican Army, deployé on a peace mission too long I could never have imagined. I left my country, I believed it would be just another humanitarian operation, one of those where you delivered, protect village, and return home with medal, and a weariness etched into your eyes. But he was wrong. What he experienced in the heart of the African desert irrevocably altered my soul. He wasn't a priest, nor a missionary, not even a particularly devout man. My prayer were more happy than genuine faith. Yet, before every deployment, my deeply religious mother would place a small, worn image of the Virgin of Guadalupe into my hand. Take this with you, son, she'd insist, her voice filled with conviction. It's not just a picture, it's a piece of heaven. I'd tuck it into my uniform in a pocket, almost dismissively, treating it more like a harmless good luck charm. Arriving in Sudan, the hit slammed into me like a physical blow. Sand, dust, the guttural cry in language I couldn't comprehend. It was a world stripped of horizon, where the sky loomed impossibly vast, and my spirit felt impossibly small. Tribal conflict, militia raid, village razed to the ground. Each day inflicted a fresh wound upon my heart. Yet, amid this horror, a tiny chapel stood built by missionary decade ago, a clandestine sanctuary where a few Christian villagers gathered to pray. I couldn't explain its magnetic pull. Every time our patrol passed nearby, I felt an undeniable urge to pause for a few minutes. It was a humble mud chapel, adorned with a rugged wooden cross, and on its simple altar, a small, hand-painted image of the Virgin Mary, almost faded into oblivion by time. There was something in those eyes, a gaze of such profound sorrow and tenderness that it compelled me to silence, to geek knew not why. Then, one evening, as the sun bled across the sky and the air reeked of fire and metal, he approached the chapel. He had just received devastating news, 3 of my comrades had perished in an ambush. Something inside me shattered. He knelt before that simple image and, for the first time in countless years, he spoke to God. If you are there, he pleaded, don't let me lose my mind in this hell. If your mother can hear me, let her look at me just once, to remind me that I am still human. That night, he dreamed of her. Not the Virgin of Guadalupe he knew, but a luminous figure, cloaked in blue, her eyes brimming with such boundless love that he awoke weeping. She uttered no word, yet her gaze pierced me, filling me with a peace that no war could ever hope to dismantle. From that day forward, every time he left on patrol, he touched the small image on my chest and whispered, Mother, cover me with your mantle. Weeks bled into weeks, and the danger intensified. Insurgents had begun systematically targeting every Christian symbol, church, cross, sacred image, until eradicating any trace of faith. One morning, we received order to evacuate a threatened village. When we arrived, the entire settlement was ablaze. Destroyed homes, piercing scream, thick smoke, UTKO. My heart pounding in my throat, I raced towards the small chapel. And there I saw the image of the Virgin that had brought me so much solace, lying on the ground, partially burned, a group of men prepared to set it completely alight. Something inside me snapped. He didn't think, he didn't reason, he simply acted. He charged toward them, screaming for them to stop. One man leveled his weapon at me, but he didn't care. He hurled myself onto the image, shielding it with my body as the flame surged up the walls. He felt the searing it climb my leg, en unbearable agony, the stench of burning flesh. He heard gunshot, scream. And then, nothing. Only silence. He awoke in a medical tent, my leg gone. The doctor explained they'd been amputated to save my life. But my first question wasn't about myself, it was about the image. A local nurse, his eyes wide with disbelief, told me they'd found a small painting among the ruins, completely intact, without a single smudge of smoke. They say it's impossible, he murmured that night. A physical agony racked my body, he felt a presence buzzed me. He didn't open my eyes, yet he knew. A profound aroma of rose permeated the air of the tent. And deep within my soul, a gentle, compassionate voice whispered, You lost nothing, my son. You gained what cannot be seen. He closed my eyes and wept not from sorrow, but from something he had never experienced before, en absolute certainty that, took the world had left me without leg, even had just given me wings. The initial days after the amputation plunged me into a silent and not just from the unbearable physical pain, but from the crushing void left by the loss of my leg. Staring at the medical tent canvassing, listening to the groan of other wounded men, he questioned the purpose of every breath. He had survived, yes, but at the cost of my body, my very purpose, everything that had defined me a soldier. He silently raged, why didn't you let me die there, Lord, if the Virgin protected me? Why did you take so much from me? Each morning, the camp chaplain, an old man with a serene face and trembling, would visit to pray with me. He spoke of faith as one might speak of the invisible, yet essential, ere we breathe. But my thoughts remained dark, siding with Angers. He couldn't comprehend the reason for my sacrifice. Sometimes, a searing pain shot through my bandaged stump, he screamed silently toward the heavens, only to receive the vast, anti-echo of the desert in reply. Then, one night, after an especially agonizing day, the chaplain left a small, blessed candle on the table beside my co. In case you wish to pray tonight, he offered. He didn't reply. He simply stared at the candle, debating whether to light it or leave it extinguished, like my face. At last, he struck a match. The tiny flame flickered for a hesitant moment, then held steady. It was then that he felt it. A gentle current of air swept through the tent, despite all the canvas flap being sealed. And with that air came, once again, the unmistakable scent of fresh rose so utterly impossible in the arid desert, so profoundly out of place, that my heart momentarily stopped. He closed my eyes, and the darkness filled with light. Not a physical light, but something born from within, from a place where pain held no dominion. And this hour. She stood there, beside my bed. She didn't float, didn't emanate the shimmering glow of religious painting, yet her presence felt more real than anything he had ever touched. Her face, so serene and yet so deeply human, bore tears. Tears that streamed softly down her cheek, not of sorrow, but of boundless compassion. She didn't speak at first, she merely looked at me. And in that gaze, he understood more than in all the sermon of my life. He tried to speak, but my voice failed. He could only manage a shocked whisper, why me, mother? Why did you leave me like this? She extended her hand and placed it on my chest, precisely where he kept the small image my mother had given me. He felt a profound warmth, not a burning fire, but a healing one. Then her voice, sweet and powerful, filled the tent like an all-encompassing whisper, my son, it was not he who took your leg. It was he who sustained you when the fire soft to cling you. Every wound you bear is a door my son will use to haunt the hearts of those who do not believe. Your sacrifice was not in vain. You protected my image, and he will protect your soul. My tears are not for your pain, but for the love you demonstrated when the world was consumed by hatred. I don't know how long that vision lasted. When he opened my eyes, the candle still burned, and the air still carried the scent of rose. He touched my chest and found the small image intact, even though my clothes were torn. He broke into a deep, profound cry, not of desperation, but of utter surrender. For the first time, he truly understood that my life was no longer my own. The days that followed brought a profound transformation. The doctor observed something inexplicable, my wound, which should have taken weeks to heal, were mending at an astonishing speed. It seemed impossible, one remarked while changing my bandage. No infection, no fever, the skin is closing as if it's been month. He simply smiled, silent, for he knew the truth. One afternoon, the chaplain found me sitting on an improvised chair, gazing at the distant horizon. Louis et began, your face has changed. You no longer look like a defeated man. He recounted everything he had witnessed, every detail, every word from the Virgin. The old priest wept in silence. Not all miracles are for physical life, he replied. Some are for eternity. That night, sleep eluded me. He listened to the sounds of the camp, the radio, the boots, the muffled conversation. It all seemed so profoundly human, so small, compare to what he had experienced. He wrestled with whether to share my story or keep this profound gift guarded in my heart. But in a voice whispered that it wasn't over, what he had seen wasn't the end of the miracle, but merely its beginning. Days turned into weeks, and he felt an ass strength blooming within me. He learned to navigate with the prosthetic they provided, but beyond the physical effort, something profound had shifted internally. When he touched the small image, he no longer felt mere paper, but a vibrant presence. Something, during prayer, that impossible rose aroma would return, perfuming the air for a few seconds, as if she were gently reminding me, I am still here. Yet, not everyone believed. Some Conrad scoffed, attributing my stories to desert hallucination. Others, those who had been with me near the chapel before the fire, remained silent whether out of fear or reverence, he couldn't tell. But then there was Samuel, a young Kenyan soldier, who looked at me one afternoon and simply stated, "It's our two, brother. When we pulled you from the rubble, there was a light upon you, and the fire did not touch you." A shiver ran down my spine. The miracle hadn't been solely for me. There were witnesses. And within me, the Virgin's voice resonated once more, "Do not fear to tell what you saw, for my sorrow will be comfort for many." It was then he understood, he had to return to that destroyed village, to the place where he had lost my leg and found heaven. He didn't know how or when, but he knew the desert still held something for me, something waiting amid the ruins and the sand. Returning to the place where he had nearly died was not easy, yet something far stronger than fear propelled me. Deep within my soul, en insist, maternal voice whispered, "Return, my son. There, where you left your body, you will reclaim your spirit." My commanding officer couldn't comprehend my desire to revisit such a volatile zone, but the chaplain interceded on my behalf. Let him go, et urged them. Et doesn't seek war, et seeks his purpose. And so, weeks later, he embarked on the journey back into the desert, accompanied by 3 local soldiers, including Samuel, who had witnessed the miraculous light during the fire. As we traveled, the landscape stretched into an endless vista of silent ruins, shrouded in ancient sorrow. Each step of our camel stirred dust that seemed to mingle sand with memory. When we finally reached the village, almost nothing remained, just blackened stones, a DRY well, and the skeletal remains of what was once the chapel. He gazed at the ruins, my heart beating in rhythm with the desolate wind. Samuel crossed himself and murmured, "It all began here." He slowly approached the destroyed altar. The walls had collapsed, but amid the rubble, a patch of color caught my eye, something small, gleaming under the sun. It was her. The image of the Virgin, the very one he had protected with my body. Incredibly, it was still intact, without a single crack, devoid of smoke or dust. My en trembling, he lifted it, and a current of warmth surged through my chest, as if her presence ignited anew within me. Samuel fell to his knees. The other 2 soldiers recoiled in awe. The air around us grew dense, vibrant, charged with something not of this world. Then he heard it. A soft sound, like a stifled sob. It emanated from the image, or perhaps from the very air itself. He stood frozen, watching as the hand-painted eyes of the Virgin began to well up. Crystalline drops descended gently down her cheek, falling onto the sand, leaving small, luminous marks, as if the earth itself was drinking tears from heaven. Samuel cried out, "She's crying. The mother is crying for you, brother." The other 2 soldiers, incredulous, approached slowly. One of them, a Muslim, removed his turban in a gesture of profound respect and murmured in Arabic, "Maryam, mother of Isa." We all stood in stunned silence. No one breathed. It was a moment suspended between the earthly and the divine. The light shifted. It wasn't the sun's reflection, it was a soft brilliance radiating from the Virgin's face, illuminating the ruin with a white and golden glow. He knelt, unable to withstand that gaze which now seemed truly alive. And the voice returned, this time not just within me, but resonating around all of us, as if the very air itself spoke, "My son, my tears are not of sadness, but of love. I weep because my maternal heart cannot bear to see such pain among God's children." I weep for the wars, for those who kill and those who die, for those who forget to love. But I also weep for you, Louis, because you gave your body to protect the face of face when the world sought to erase it. I didn't know if the other heard the word, but her face reflected the same profound astonishment. Samuel wept openly. One soldier dropped to his knees and began to pray, to beg no formal word. The other, eyes wide with wonder, murmured in his language, "This cannot be human." Suddenly, a gust of wind rose, but instead of stirring dust, it carried the unmistakable aroma of fresh rose. It was so intense, we all felt it. Trembling, I raised the image and embraced it against my chest. In that instant, something shifted within me. The weight of guilt, of fear, of physical pain, vanished. I felt peace a peace so profound that tears flowed uncontrollably. Mother, I sobbed, if you weep for us, how can we not believe? How can we not surrender our lives if you are still here with us? The light intensified furtively, bathing the place in a radiance that did not blind, build. Suddenly, Samuel looked up and shouted, "Look at your leg." I glanced down, utterly incrédulo. I felt a tingling sensation, one I hadn't experienced in years. I flexed my stump, and before my astonished eyes, flesh began to form, as if the very air obeyed an invisible will. Skin regenerated, muscles wove themselves anew, bones extended. In mere second, my leg were there complete, alive, dusted with a golden shimmer. I collapsed to my knees, this time on my own two legs. The ground burned beneath me, but I didn't care. I cried out with joy, with adoration, with disbelief. The other, too, fell to the ground some logging, other weeping, all utterly incapable of comprehending. The Virgin continued to gaze at us, her face still moist with tears, but her smile was now luminous, maternal, eternal. Then, slowly, the light began to recede. The image returned to its normal state, took the brilliance in her eyes linged, as if still holding the promise of the miracle. No one spoke for several minutes. The silence was so profound that one could almost hear the pulse of the earth itself. Finally, Samuel approached and whispered, "Heaven descended here, brother, and you were at its bridge." He stared at the horizon, the ruin, the sand, the wind. Everything looked the same, yet nothing was. He knew, with a certainty that transcends the mind and penetrates the soul, that this apparition wasn't just for me. It was a message for the world, a reminder that even amid the ashes of hatred, the Virgin continued to weep with love. And within me, her voice still resonated, "Rise, my son, and tell what you saw. Do not fear mockery or do, for those who hear your story, even if they do not comprehend it, will feel in their hearts the perfume of my presence." News of the miracle swept through the desert faster than any sandstorm. Within 2 days, men and women from distant villages began to converge on the spot where the Virgin had wept. Some arrived clutching rosary, others drawn merely by curiosity, but all felt the same mysterious summon, that inner voice pulling their soul towards the sacred. No one could explain how the story had spread, yet the dusty path filled with pilgrims. I remained there, still struggling to fully grasp what my eyes had witnessed and my body had experienced. My leg, now healthy and strong, were a constant, indeniable testament that the impossible had been overcome. Samuel, ever by my side, would often repeat with a humble smile, "God visited us, brother, and he did so through his mother." The first group of civilians arrived at dawn. An elderly woman, leaning on a wooden staff, approached me, tears streaming down her face. "I dreamed of her," she told me. "I dreamed she cried over the desert, and a soldier rose from his sorrow. When she saw the image of the Virgin, she knelt and began to pray in her dialect, a soft murmur that seemed to melt into the air. Soon, dozens followed suit. By midday, the site had transformed into an impromptu sanctuary. Pilgrims placed candles, dried flowers, pieces of cloth inscribed with names, each wishing to leave a fragment of their up there. That impossible rose aroma would reappear intermittently, filling the air with a vibrant, sweet, and lingering fragrance. Some claimed it emanated from the image, others simply believed it was a sign of her continued, invisible, yet palpable presence. However, not everyone observed with face. A evening fell, military vehicles arrived. Armed officer dismounted, shooting order, dispersing the growing crowd. There are no miracle here. This is dangerous superstition. One tall officer, adorned with insignia, approached me, his tone hostile. Are you the soldier they speak of? Et demanded. He nodded, unafraid. Yes, sir. I am that man. Et scrutinized me from head to toe, clearly astonished by my intact leg. They say you were mutilated, that your leg grew back before witness. His voice was a blend of disbelief and fury. That is ether blasphemy orally. Neither, he replied. It was simply love, sir. And when love is true, nothing can stop it. He struck me across the face with the back of his hand. Do not use that tone with me, soldier. These stories cause unrest. People abandoning their duty, soldier praying instead of obeying order. We cannot permit it. He commanded his men to seize the image. Samuel stepped forward, interposing himself. You will not, he stated, his voice firm. If you touch that image, you touch the mother of all. The soldier hesitated. Something in the air held them back, en invisible force. The impatient officer raised his rifle, aiming directly at the image. If this idol is so powerful, let it defend itself. And he pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed through the desert, but the bullet never reached the TS target. It stopped midair, mere inch from the image, suspended if cocked by an incident. Everyone saw it. Silence descended like a shroud. The officer recoiled, his face ashen. The bullet fell harmlessly to the ground, and in that instant, a ray of light descended from the heavens, illuminating the Virgin's face with a golden clarity. No one spoke. Some soldiers dropped to their knees, others, trembling, let their weapons clatter to the sand. The officer covered his face with his hand, murmuring, God, my God, forgive me. He turned to me, tears streaming, what is happening? What is this? It is mercy, he replied. Not vengeance. She did not come to punish, but to show that even the hardest hearts can learn to love again. The man crumpled to his knees, weeping like a child. Around him, the pilgrim prayed anew in different tongues, creating a symphony of faith that seemed to ascend to the heavens. He looked at the image. Her eyes, once more, shone wet, as sharing the emotion of her children. From that day forward, the place ceased to be mere ruin, it became a living sanctuary. The villagers rebuilt the chapel with their own hands, using what little they possessed, all brick, scavenged wood, and boundless faith. Every stone was laid with a prayer. Soldiers, even some Muslims, came to pray in silence, without word, only with their hearts. Authority attempted once more to silence the story, but they failed. Testimony multiplied. Doctor spoke of my inexplicable recovery. Journalist who arrived to mock ended up weeping before the image. Science, politique, fear all crumbled before a simple truth, something divine had touched the earth. One night, as the crowd recited the rosary, he distanced himself a few meters to be alone. He gazed at the clear sky and whispered, Mother, why did you cry for me? And her voice, soft as a breeze through palm leaf, answered in my heart, because when a child suffers for love, heaven also weeps. But these are not tears of sorrow, my son, but seed of faith. Where they fall, hope blossom. From that moment, he understood that my testimony was not an end, but a mission. He had to tell this story not to aggrandise myself, but to remind the world that even amid war, compassion can disarm rifle, and that the Virgin never abandoned her children, not even in the dust of the desert. The days that followed felt like living within a dream, one belonging more to heaven than to earth. The place that had once been a theater of war and ashes had transformed into a river of life. People arrived from distant villages, walking for hours under the scorching sun, some limping, others on crutches, mothers carrying sick children. They came seeking what neither science nor weapon could offer, solace, hope, forgiveness. there was no formal organisation, not enough priest, nor ample resource. Yet, every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the star lit their canopy over the desert, the chanting began. Regardless of language, the prayer flowed a single, unified voice. And always, at the conclusion of each prayer, the air would fill with that impossible, pure rose perfume so undeniable that no one could deny the Virgin's continued presence. Then, things began to happen that defied all explanation. A woman, blind since childhood, regained her sight simply by touching the base of the altar. A man, rendered speechless after an explosion, recovered his voice and recited the Ave Maria. A mother showed me her son, who had arrived feverish and at death's door. She placed him at the feet of the image, and by dawn, the child was longing and asking for bread. The military doctor attempting to document these events found themselves speechless. There's no medical explanation, they repeated, again and again. But the people no longer needed explanation, they simply needed faith. He observed it always a mixture of awe and humility. Sometimes, he wondered why the Virgin had chosen me a soldier, a cine, flawed and imperfect. And each time that do pricked my heart, a voice from deep within would reply, because my son seeks not the perfect, but the willing, and you gave your body out of love. One afternoon, I helped place candle before the altar, a young soldier approached me. He was one of those who had come with the officer on the day of the gunshot. He knelt before the image and, without lifting his gaze, said, he want to ask for forgiveness. He was part of those who destroyed village, who burned image. But since that day, he can no sleep. He see her face every night, those tears falling. He can no longer bear the weight of my guilt. He placed a hand on his shoulder. God does not reject the penitent, he told him. He does not count your wound a punishment, but a pass back home. The young man began to weep. He want to change et murmure. He want to serve the God who cry for us. The next morning, he saw him helping to erect walls, distribute water, and comfort other wounded. He had transitioned from fear to love, and he wasn't the only one. The former officer, the one who had feared at the image, also returned. He came unarmed, out of uniform, his face haggard but his eyes alight with something new. He soft me out in the crowd and knelt before me. I am not worthy to speak to you, he said. But he came to confess something. The day we shot, he felt something inside me break. He have spent entire night asking for forgiveness. He want to offer my life to protect this place, if you will allow it. He lifted him and embraced him. Do not ask me, he replied. Ask her. If her had forgave you, no one else can judge you. And so he did. From that day forward, the man who had been an instrument of destruction became the sanctuary's guardian. Gradually, the surrounding village began to transform. Where violence once reigned, prayer gathering emerged. Children learned to recite the rosary, and mothers taught hymns of peace. Even some Muslim leaders, observing this profound change, approached with curiosity and respect. I don't understand everything you preach, one confided in me, but if your God makes a chies mother weep out of love, then he must be a God of mercy. He was no longer the same man who had arrived in the desert. My leg were a visible testament, but the greatest change had occurred within my soul. Before, he believed courage meant wielding a weapon. Now, he knew true courage was kneeling before the mystery and saying, "Thy will be done." The chaplain, who had returned to the seat after hearing rumor of the miracle, embraced me upon seeing me walk. Louis, my son, he said, tears in his eyes, the Lord has made you a living sign. But remember, miracles are not to be kept, they are to be shared. Do not stay here forever. You must carry this testimony to the world. That night, he couldn't sleep. He walked across the sand under a moonless sky, guided only by the starlight. He felt a gentle fire in my chest, a voice calling me forward. He knelt and prayed, "Mother, if you wish me to speak, he will speak. If you wish me to suffer, he will suffer. Just do not let me forget your tears, for in them, he found the reason to live." The wind blew strongly, lifting a cloud of golden dust that enveloped me for an instant. And within that luminous silence, I heard her voice again, my son, the tears you witnessed were not the end, but the beginning. For every tear that falls from my face is a seed of faith that will sprout in the heart of whoever hear your story. Go and tell it. Do not fear the world as do, for the love born of pain is eternal. I rose to my feet, breathed in the desert air, and understood that this place, once a witness to destruction, had become a cradle of hope, and my mission was just a beginning. Many months later, I returned to my country. The journey was long, not just in distance, but because of the invisible weight I carried in my soul. It wasn't a burden, it was a mission. I brought with me a replica of the Virgin's image that had wept in the desert, a piece of cloth soaked in those sacred tears, and a heart that no longer knew fear. When the plane touched down, I felt the ground tremble beneath my renewed feet, as if the earth itself recognized the miracle I carried within. My mother waited at the airport. The moment she saw me walk, she covered her mouth with her hand and began to cry. My son, it can't be. Your leg. He knelt before her and showed her the small, all image she had given me before he left. Mother, he said, she kept her promise. She not only protected me, she wept for me. We embraced in silence, and in that embrace, he understood that the love of a mother on earth and the love of the mother in heaven spring from the same heart. He began visiting parish, hospital, prison. He had no theological training or elaborate speech. He simply told my story. He recounted how fire had not consumed me, how the sand had not buried me, how the Virgin had wept, and how heaven had descended to touch the earth. Many listened with tears, others with doubt, some with incredulity. But everyone, in some way, was touched not by my word, but by the truth that breathed within them. One evening, after speaking in a humble church on the outskirts of Guadalajara, a young man approached me after mass. Sir, he said, his voice trembling, I've been contemplating taking my own life. I believe in nothing, feel nothing. But as you spoke, I smelled rose. There are no flowers here. I don't understand what that was. I placed a hand on his shoulder. It was her, he replied. You don't need to understand it, just let her love you. That young man began to weep, and sometime later, he learned he had become a volunteer at a hospital. Little by little, he understood that the miracle had not ended in the desert. It continued to multiply in every heart that believed, in every life that surrendered to love. Newspapers wrote about me, some to mock, others to investigate. Doctor reviewed my record. Journalists traveled to the sanctuary. None could explain anything. Some returned skeptical, others converted. And amid all the world's noise, a certainty continued to grow within me, the Virgin did not weep only for me, but for all her children who suffered without hope. One day, he was invited to return to Sudan. He hesitated at first. He feared that revisiting the place would overwhelm me with painful memory. But one night, I prayed, he heard that voice again. Son, where your wound began, my solace now blossom. Return, for my tears still bear fruit. He accepted. When he arrived at the sanctuary, he found it unrecognizable. Where ruins stood, there was now a simple, yet beautiful temple, built by the hand of people of many faiths. Hundreds of testimony adorned the TS walls, crutch, letters, photographs, small rosary, piece of cloth inscribed with word of gratitude in different languages. They told me that pilgrims arrived weekly from across the continent, and that the Virgin's tears, collected in small glass vials, had become a source of healing for the sick in various countries. The former officer, now a friar, greeted me with a serene smile. Look what God has done, he said. What was once a field of death is now a land of life. We knelt before the original image. The light of the setting sun streamed through a crack in the roof, falling directly upon her face. For a moment, he imagined he saw the gleam of those sacred tears once more. He closed my eyes and spoke from the depth of my being. Mother, I am worthy of such love. I saw you weep for me, but I know your tears continue to fall for a world that refused to look to heaven. What more can I do? And her voice responded, so soft it was barely a whisper, keep loving, my son. Where love seem impossible, there you want you to be. Where face falte, there you will carry my light. Do not fear loss, for he who love never truly lows. He left the temple with my atablas. The desert that had once been a tomb was now a garden. Children ran among the dune, women sang hymns in their language, and men erected cross made from their branch. Life had returned where death had reigned. And he understood that this was the true miracle, not that my leg had returned, but that my soul had learned to walk. Since then, every time he tell my story, he don't speak of myself. He speak of her, of the mother who wept in the desert for a soldier who didn't know how to pray. Of the woman who continued to intercede for a world that forget to look to heaven. And whenever Someone asks if he still feel her near, he close my eyes and answer, yes, she is here. In every tear of love, in every forgiveness of red, in every life reborn from pain. And if you ever do, if you ever feel the weight of life burying you like desert sand, remember this, the Virgin weeps for you too, not out of sadness, but out of love, because every one of her tears is a promise of hope, a sign that heaven has not abandoned us. He know this. He lived it. And along I have breath, he will continue to speak her name, Mary, my mother, mother of all. Thank you for weeping for me.